السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. ثمة قاعدة قديمة في السياسة تشير إلى أن قادة البلاد عندما تحبط برامجهم السياسية داخل أوطانهم فإنهم يباشرون في الانطلاق بمبادرات ومغامرات في بقاع أخرى، والتي قد تبدو أسهل من النظرة الأولى من التعامل مع الهيئات التشريعية الخاصة بهم، لكن تجري الرياح بما لا تشتهي السفن. مع الروائي والكاتب الثائر أندره فلتشيك نتحدث من الداخل عن السياسة الأمريكية اليوم عقب الانتخابات النصفية وقضايا أخرى حول العالم. معكم زينب الصفار، تابعونا. لعلها حكاية صينية قديمة يعود تاريخها إلى نحو 200 عام قبل الميلاد، عن صبي أرسله سيده لاصطياد أرنب لطعام الغداء، حيث ذهب الصبي إلى الغابة، وبمجرد وصوله إلى هناك رأى أرنبا ضخما يمر عبر الغابة بأقصى سرعة. وقف الصبي مندهشا يراقب، وبينما هو كذلك وإذ بالأرنب يرتطم مباشرة بالشجرة ويسرع. كل ما كان على الفتى القيام به هو التقاط الأرنب وحمله إلى البيت منتصرا ومباشرة إلى القدر. إن العبرة الصينية الأصلية للقصة هي الصبي الذي أصبح بعد ذلك رجلاً قضى السنوات 50 التالية من عمره يقف إلى جانب الشجرة نفسها في انتظار المزيد من الأرانب لعلها تصطدم بها. بالطبع لم يحصل أي شيء، والعبرة لا تتوقع أن يعيد التاريخ نفسه. وبحسب المراقبين كانت للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية تجربة مماثلة. في أعقاب الحرب العالمية الثانية هرع بقية العالم بالفعل باتجاه الشجرة وارتطم بها وفقد وعيه اقتصاديا. كل ما كان يتعين على الولايات المتحدة أن تفعله آنذاك هو الحصول على طعام الغداء الذي كان مرميا على الأرض. والآن بعد مرور 70 عاما يقف رئيس أمريكي عند الشجرة نفسها على أمل أن يركض العالم مرة أخرى إليها ويصطدم بها ويفقد وعيه، ضاربا رأسه بالعقوبات ونقص السيولة في الدولار فقط ليرتمي على الأرض ويصبح عرضة للولايات المتحدة للإطباق عليه وحمله إلى البيت وتجهيز المأدبة والإجهاز عليه. هذه مجرد قصة رمزية ولا ينبغي أن تؤخذ بحرفيتها، لكن النقطة واضحة، والرئيسان الصيني والروسي يعيان ذلك. وإذا نجح العالم في الابتعاد عن شجرة ترامب فمن المحتمل أن يكون الوضع المالي لأمريكا هو الذي سيحترق. أندره فلتشيك المفكر والروائي الروسي، هل في رأيه سيقوم الرئيس الأمريكي دونالد ترامب بإعادة توجيه سياسته الخارجية في أعقاب نتائج الانتخابات النصفية؟
زينب, President of the United States is a very unpredictable figure. But saying this, actually, I don't believe that the presidency of the United States has such a great importance that we are usually attaching to it. President Trump is a product of his era, is a product of his capitalist, imperialist beliefs. He is a populist, which I hate to use this term, but he is a populist. In a way, he's actually, for the first time in American modern history, he's an honest person. Now, saying honest person, I say it, as you can see, a little bit with, or quite with the irony, because he says usually what he thinks. Well, Obama, of course, Clinton, Bush, they had the entire entourage behind them who were actually dictating what they are supposed to say or to do. So why do we have this insane hatred of liberals against Trump is because actually he is uncontrollable, unpredictable for the so-called liberal establishment, which is actually not liberal at all. I mean, the word liberal is a very discredited term. But he actually is interested in pushing his own agenda. And pushing his own agenda is much more important for him than to please the lieutenants that are serving him in the White House, in Congress, or people who are in Congress, Senate, Supreme Court. What makes actually Trump so interesting is that he genuinely believes that he can improve life of American people and that he can stop this, the US as he believes to be used by Europeans. And others. That's very interesting because actually...
But they have been using the Europeans for quite a long period of time.
They were using each other. And that's actually very interesting because, again, he does have a point. Because look at Europe and look at Western Europe at least and look at the United States. United States in many ways is a failed state. It has horrible infrastructure. It has third world medical care. There are now people in the United States, and I couldn't believe it, but I talked to my friends and they confirmed this, who are spending more than half of their family income on the medical care. People cannot afford education anymore. It is for their children. And look at Europe. Europe has all this. Europe has free medical care, most of it. It has free education and so on. Americans, North Americans, are sending their troops. They are terrorizing entire continents in order to rob, in order to steal. But the loot goes very often only to the pockets of the Europeans. Europeans don't participate except in Afghanistan and other places where they send some, small contingent. But they want basically US to fight on their behalf, to loot on their behalf. And I spoke about this recently and wrote recently a lot. I think the point that some Americans are making is we are all thieves, we are all looting, so let us all also divide equally the booty. And of course they don't say it openly like that, and Trump doesn't say it openly like that, but this is behind all this rhetoric that
he's going to make NATO countries, those who take part in the NATO, to pay more.
He will make Koreans pay also, he will make Japanese.
He's making the Saudis pay also.
He's making Saudis pay all this. All this what you hear from me here is sarcastic, of course, because it's horrific one way or the other. I mean, the entire Western world is looting. But it's Americans who are looting, and plus, they don't get almost anything in return. Europeans are ideologically behind that loot. They are intellectually, in parentheses, intellectually behind all this propaganda of the United States, behind this justification of neocolonialism, imperialism that you people here in the Middle East, but also Africans, Asians, South Americans are suffering so brutally from.
So there's going to be a kind of reorientation in his foreign policy.
Yes. Now, it's always unpredictable because his foreign policy, his domestic policy is schizophrenical. It depends how he wakes up or when he wakes up and...
tweets something. Yes,
tweets something.
Yeah, of course.
In the middle of the night,
bottom line here, Mr. Fltchik, President Putin, Vladimir Putin, may wonder whether the US midterm elections will bring any foreign policy change. Plainly not in respect to China, but with the neocons so dug into Trump's administration at many levels. Really, the only question is, why or what does Mr. Bolton want from Russia now?
Well, he didn't bring much of the peace proposals to Moscow during his, during his recent visit. Look, I think both China and Russia are coming to the point that they are not going to rely anymore on the whims and on the mood swings and mood changes of the US administration.
But Vladimir likes to meet Trump every now and then.
I think he has a kick
What does
out.
that
He has a kick out
materialize?
of the meeting.
Yes.
Because it also shows such a superiority of the Russian foreign policy compared to the US foreign policy that it would be difficult not to actually enjoy such a performance. I mean, Russian foreign policy, foreign policies directed by the seasoned, very experienced diplomats. And it is very clear that Russia is on the defensive. It's never attacking the US, and all the withdrawals from the agreements are done by the United States. I mean, it is so obvious that even in Europe, which is a close ally of the United States, it is a normal common topic in the pubs and of course in the newspapers of the normal people. People talk about it, that it is, they are waking up, they see that this is just too great a contrast. So there is a possibility that there will be some detente, that there will be an attempt of White House to come closer to Russia. But I would be very surprised if it would be permanent change. I think it will be, again, fluctuating, and this fluctuation can lead, again, to very dangerous situation, because the warming up can be followed by abrupt confrontation and therefore to a direct conflict.
The same thing happened with Iran when it comes to the nuclear dossier. This fluctuation played a lot. I mean, an observer also notes that Trump does not seek war with Iran, but rather is convinced that there's going to be a kind of popular uprising in Iran that will topple the state. Is this how you understand the current US sanctions, those very tight sanctions this time against Iran today?
Yes, and it's actually very dangerous, because Iran is a country which suffered tremendously from the West in general and from the United States in particular. I mean, toppling up of the democratic government of President Mossadegh actually set back the entire progressive Muslim world. It was a beginning. It was followed by Indonesia in '65. And so Iran knows what it is to live under the horrible dictatorship of Shah, which was put there by the United States. And the government of Iran is very much aware also of what may come if it is forced to leave. It will be just another horror, probably, that would be replicating the rule of Shah. They will not allow it, simply. I mean, in the name of the nation, in the name of the people, they will not allow it, and they should not allow anything like that. So this fluctuation is not really seen in Tehran very positively. Even if there is no conflict anytime very soon, Iran is preparing for war, and it should be preparing for war, because it has to be ready to defend itself, because the alternative is, again, hundreds of thousands of ruined lives, millions of people tortured.
Right. Allow me to stop you now, Andre, for a break, and afterwards we're going to take you to East Asia to talk a bit about Indonesia, but after the break, sorry.
Okay.
إذن فاصل قصير ونعود، لا تذهبوا بعيدا. أندره فلتشيك المفكر والروائي الروسي كان يتردد بشكل متواصل إلى مقاطعات مختلفة في إندونيسيا على مدى 25 عاماً، وأشار أكثر من مرة في كتبه إلى المشاكل البيئية الكبيرة هناك، ونشر أخيراً مقالاً بعنوان التصوير في أكثر مدينة محبطة على وجه الأرض، جاكرتا. لماذا يبدو بهذه السوداوية والقنوط؟ ولماذا تقتله هذه المدينة؟
Zeynep, actually, yes, 25 years in Indonesia. I am something what is defined as an Indonesianist, meaning I write books, I'm an expert on Indonesia, I write books about Indonesia, I make films about Indonesia, I speak the language. The greatest Indonesian writer of all times, Pramudia Anantatur, wrote his last book with me because he didn't trust any Indonesian writer. So my involvement in Indonesia is very deep. But why? You see...
And why, if you are that desperate, why do you keep on going there and filming and writing about Jakarta, Borneo, and other places?
Let me explain this. It is because what I'm doing is I'm sending a warning to the world. What would happen to any country that would totally abandon itself to savage capitalism, to what I call turbo capitalism, a country abandoned to Wahhabism, a country which would be totally subservient to the Western interests. You see, to me, Indonesia is not just a country, it's a Western concept. I call it very often intellectual Hiroshima. Why? Because in 1965, the country was led by the most populous Muslim country was led by the moderate president, Ahmed Sukarno. And Ahmed Sukarno had a best friend and ally, which was a PKI, the Communist Party of Indonesia, which in turn was the third biggest, most populous communist party in the world after the Chinese and Soviet one. If the West wouldn't perform the coup in '66, the PKI, which was totally democratic party, would comfortably and quietly win elections. Now, all the natural resources were in the hands of the state and the people under Sukarno. The country was very progressive, and President Sukarno was shouting at the U.S. ambassador, in the middle of the national stadium, "To hell with your aid. We don't need your aid." There was confrontation. Indonesia was attacked from the U.S. bases in the Philippines. And there was a constant dream of the West to overthrow this resources-rich country. And they succeeded. In 1965, the military, treasonous military, and Muslim jihadi cadres, but not only Muslim, also Christians, as I found out, and
the extremists.
Hindus, the extremists. They actually joined they overthrew the government and they joined the massacres in which between 1 and 3 million people died. But who were these 1 to 3 million people?
The intellectuals.
They were intellectuals, atheists, communists, but also teachers, regular teachers. 40% of teachers on the island of Java were killed. The military was teaching in the classes because there was not enough teachers. Women were gang raped. The most horrible atrocities took place in the next 2 years. And then Chinese and Russian languages and culture were banned. The pop was injected, pop culture, popular, most primitive pop culture from the United States was injected. Junk food was injected in it.
As a sign of modernity.
As a sign of modernity. The traditional art, Indonesia was a very cultural nation before '65, was basically banned and turned to the pop. They had theater forms like Katoprav, and every village had a stage. And at least once a week, the actors would talk about all the problems that the country was having, from the price of rice to corruption of their leaders. All that was banned. So concentration camps were built. So basically what the West tells you to think about North Korea, it's not how North Korea is, but that's how Indonesia is. It's a total brainwashing. It's a total right-wing and pro-capitalist.
And to add to this, excuse me, Andre, The Economist once described Indonesia as the least documented large country on earth. No powerful criticism of the country can ever be aired by the mainstream media. Why the West does not allow
I will explain it to you. Because Indonesian people are sacrificing themselves or are being sacrificed in order to feed the multinational companies. Indonesia basically allows all those multinationals to literally plunder the biggest islands in the world, like Papua, like Borneo, which is known as Kalimantan, and Sumatra. And remember, the biggest island in the world is Greenland, but number 2 is Papua, and number 3 is Kalimantan. It has everything. French are digging uranium there. There are gold mines, there are coal mines, there is Indonesia is the biggest exporter of what they call sawit, which is palm oil. There are rubber plantations. Basically, there is nothing left of the rivers are poisoned with mercury. The tropical forest is totally destroyed. Entire mountains are flattened. It's a horror. It's a horror scenario. And I'm telling you this even after I worked and filmed in Brazil. There is nothing like this in Brazil. And even with this fascist Bolsonaro president now coming to power, he will never dare to do what Indonesia managed to do silently. And you know what? There is no resistance. People do not realize the state in which they are.
Andrej Velčík, I'm afraid we have to stop here, but I advise our viewers to go ahead and read your book, The Archipelago of Fear, and to read your articles. The most recent column that you have written. It's a very long and tough column full of information. Russian novelist, filmmaker, thinker, revolutionary writer, and internationalist. You're always welcome. Many thanks indeed for this perspective and insight. It's always a pleasure, sir.
Thank you so much, Zeynep.
Always welcome, sir. إذا إلى اللقاء في الأسبوع المقبل مع الجزء الثاني من هذا الحوار مع المفكر والكاتب الروسي أندره فلتشيك. من كل فريق عمل البرنامج، من كل الميادين، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.